Hello everyone, my name is Manish Singla and this is my first YouTube video. Sometime back I traveled to one of the most beautiful countries that I've ever been to, and ever since I've come back I've got so many questions from friends, families, colleagues about how I planned my trip, which are the cities that need to be visited to, what are the things that to be taken care of. So I decided let's make a video which I can share on YouTube so that more travel enthusiasts can travel to this place. Yes, the country that I'm talking about is Vietnam, one of the most beautiful countries that I've ever visited. In this video, I'm going to be talking about each and everything that you would require to travel to this place. My aim is that by the end of this video, you will almost know everything about things that are required to plan this trip about Vietnam. So let's get started. Vietnam can be divided into three parts from the perspective of a traveler: North, Central and South. So depending on the number of days that you have, you can choose to travel to either one, two or all of these three regions. If you have, for example, 4 to 5 days, then my recommendation would be to pick any of these regions and travel to that. If you have 7 to 10 days, then you can easily choose 2 regions and travel there. If you have 12 to 15 days, then you can easily cover all the 3 regions as well. This is what we did as well. Our trip was for around 15 days and we were able to cover all the major cities. Vietnamese people speak Vietnamese, that's their official language, but you'll still find a lot of people who speak English and communicate in English very well. That's not going to be a challenge. From the perspective of weather, because Vietnam is a big country, it's divided from south to north, so you will find varied weathers and temperatures. So my recommendation is, whenever you're planning, please see to it what is the weather there and pack your bags accordingly. Checklist. What are some of the things that you require before you travel to Vietnam? First and foremost is e-visa. I've given the link of the website in the description below. Once you apply for the visa, you will get the visa in 3 to 4 working days. It's very easy process. The cost of the visa is around $25 per person, which roughly translates to around 2000 INR. So the second thing that you need to have before you travel is travel insurance. Again, check the guidelines for whether it's mandatory or not, but my recommendation is, if you are traveling to any of the foreign countries, you should get a travel health insurance, because the cost versus benefit goes in favor of the benefit. So just get one. The cost would be of roughly around 500 to 700 rupees per person. The third thing that you need to have before you travel are some of the apps. Couple of apps that you need to have for planning your group tours, which you will surely do, are Klook and Get Your Guide. You can either have one or both of these, depending on if, let's say, you have multiple people in your group, to get the best prices. Another couple of apps that you need to have for better commute are Grab and GoCheck. I think these are absolute lifesavers, and you need to have either one of these or both of these. The last but not the least app that you need to have is Google Translate. I think that was absolute amazing, and I realized the importance of Google Translate in this trip. The next thing that you need is a international transactions enabled credit card. So you should definitely have it. It definitely helps and comes as a savior. There are another multiple global forex cards which are available. For example, one of them is Neo Global card, which we took, and it was amazing. We really loved it. So it was a seamless service. The next thing that you will require is a mobile SIM. There are 2 major networks in Vietnam. One is Mobifone and second is Viettel. You can go for either of these. Both are amazing. My recommendation is that if you have multiple people in your group, so you should have a mixture or combination of that, so that if one of them is not working, the other is working. So I think that works the best. Last but not the least is you'll require some cash. So either take VND, which is the official currency for Vietnam, Vietnamese dong, or you take some US dollars from here when you're traveling and get those converted when in Vietnam. Do not get them converted at the airport. The prices are not in favor of you. Get them converted at some of the local shops. Coming to the most exciting part of this entire video, which is our trip. So we traveled to Vietnam during the most exciting time of the year, which is Christmas and the New Year. We went to Vietnam on 21st of December and came back on 4th of January. We started our trip down south in Ho Chi Minh, where we spent around 3 nights. Then moved to Muine, where we spent 1 night, and then we moved to Dalat, where we spent 2 nights. So all 6 nights in total in the South Vietnam. From there, we moved to the central Vietnam, which has these two most exciting cities in the entire Vietnam, which is Da Nang and Hoi An. We spent couple of nights both in Da Nang and then couple of nights in Hoi An. From there, we went to the capital of Vietnam, which is Hanoi. We spent 4 nights there, obviously covering two most exciting places there, one of which is Halong Bay and another is Ninh Binh. So this is an entire 14-day itinerary or 14-night itinerary, you may call it. There were few places which we were not able to cover. So that's where if you have an extra 1 week, you should probably look at covering these places as well, which I'm just going to mention, to make it around a 21-day kind of a trip. In South, if you want to extend your stay further, there's an amazing place called Phu Quoc Islands. You can spend a couple of nights there. Another place that you can probably cover in South is Nha Trang. It's a beautiful city which I definitely would like to visit in future. You can spend 1 night there. In center Vietnam, there's one city which we couldn't cover, which is called Hue. It's again a very small city, but I think it's good to spend 1 night there. And then similarly in the north part, we missed one amazing city which is named as Sapa. I think it's a beautiful hill station. We saw the pictures, but unfortunately we didn't plan it initially and we didn't have time later on. So I think you can definitely include that in your itinerary as well. A couple of nights is enough for Sapa. So this is an entire 20-day itinerary if you can plan, or if you want to follow our itinerary, which was around 14 days, I think that's also sufficient. Next section that I'm going to cover is transportation. For ease, I will divide this section into 4 parts. The first section is inter-country. There are plenty of options in terms of airlines which are flying to Vietnam from your home country, and they reach out to most of the major airports like Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, Da Nang and Phu Quoc. So we chose Vietjet Airlines because it was cheaper and it was the only direct airlines from Mumbai to Vietnam. The next section is inter-region. As I told in my previous section that there are 3 regions which you can divide Vietnam into. For traveling from one region to other, obviously it's still quite far, so flights is the best option, and the flights were not that expensive as well. We chose Bamboo Airways, but there are other local airlines options as well which are present. If let's say you are restricted on budget, there are train options as well for traveling from one region to other. Obviously it will take time, but again you have to choose between budget and time. The next section is intercity. How do you travel from one city to other? Let's say if you have to travel approximately 100 to 250, 300 kilometers, there are 2 options, buses and trains. We found buses to be very, very convenient, and to our surprise, the buses were extremely clean and amazing. So buses is definitely a good option, but I know that a lot of people do travel through trains as well, which is equally convenient. So I think you can choose either of those. Obviously, if you have, let's say, higher budget, you can also look at traveling by cabs, either private cabs or shared cabs. So that option is also available. A lot of people do take that option as well. The last subsection is intra-city. If you have to commute within the city, there are plenty of options. Grab is pretty common and helpful. So you should definitely have that app while you are in Vietnam. The cabs are pretty awesome, pretty clean. Gojek is another app where you can book bikes to travel to from one place to other. And obviously then there are options to rent bikes and cycles as well, which is pretty convenient and very, very cheap. Now I'm going to address some of the concerns or thoughts that you might have. First, obviously, is about the language problem. Yes, Vietnam will have some bit of an issue because Vietnamese is their primary language. So I think in those cases, when you have to talk to the cab drivers, the local street vendors, you have to use a lot of Google Translate. I think it was pretty exciting for us. So rather than a challenge, I think it's exciting because you don't generally do that. But if you're visiting, let's say, at the airport, big restaurants, the tour guides, they all speak English pretty well, so you'll feel a lot more comfortable there. In terms of the next concern, I think food can be one of the concerns for some people, as Vietnam is a largely seafood eating country. So obviously a lot of options are of seafood and people generally there prefer that. But again, we were there for 2 weeks. We found Indian restaurants or vegetarian restaurants everywhere in every city. So I don't think that's going to be any of your big concerns when you're traveling to Vietnam. The third thing that might crop up is about safety. So I'll tell you, we were there for 2 weeks. I was there with my wife. It was pretty safe. There was not even a single moment when we felt threatened or not at ease. So I think pretty amazing, and really commend Vietnam for that. So I think you don't have to worry about that. Yeah. So Vietnam is an amazing country with amazing places to visit, amazing things to do. But what about the cost? So that's what exactly I'm going to talk about now. The first cost that you're going to incur if you have to travel to Vietnam is the e-visa. It's roughly going to cost you $25 per person, which translates to around 2,000 rupees per person. The second major cost that you have to bear, which is a fixed cost, is the flight ticket from the country that you're traveling to Vietnam. So in the case of India, from Mumbai, it will be approximately 20 to 25k for both the sides. So again, if you are one person who's traveling, that's the cost that you have to incur. If there are two people, you can assume somewhere between 45 to 50k the cost. The next bucket that you have to consider is the in-country flights. So as I mentioned earlier in my video, that you have to travel from north to central to north, or central to south. So obviously that's the expense that you have to incur. So the in-country flights are roughly going to cost you 2.5 to 3k per flight per person. So it's pretty nominal. So depending on the number of flights that you're taking, so you can calculate the cost. The next major cost that you're going to incur, obviously, which is a variable cost, is the hotel stay or homestay. So Vietnam is one of the most affordable countries with respect to accommodation. So you can assume anywhere between 1,500 to 3,000 per day cost for accommodation, depending on, let's say, if you want to go on the higher side or the lower side. So it's pretty nominal that way. The next major cost is the SIM cost. Again, it's very nominal cost of around 800 to 1,000 bucks that you have to pay to get a SIM. You can get that at the airport or any of the local shops. The next major expense is the food expense. Again, it's going to be a little on the expensive side for vegetarian people and on the lower side for non-vegetarian people, for obvious reasons. So you can consider around 600 to 800 rupees for non-vegetarians per day per person. For vegetarian people, it's going to be around 1,000 to 1,200 rupees per day per person. The next cost that you have to incur is the local transport. Again, if you have to travel within the city or nearby, so obviously either you will rent a motorbike or let's say use Grab or Gojek. So you can assume roughly around 600 to 800 rupees per person per day to travel. So obviously if you are two people, so the cost will almost remain same, either if you are renting a bike or let's say even if you're taking a cab. So you can assume 600 to 800 per day. And the next again important cost and thing which you need to do is take a health insurance, travel health insurance. It's going to cost you very less, around 600 to 800 rupees per person. But again, it's definitely important and I would highly recommend that. The next major cost that you have to take care of is the book tours. So all of these places which are extremely important in Vietnam, like Halong Bay, Mekong Delta, Cu tunnels, you can pre-book the tours and then go along with the guide and the entire group. So you can assume a cost of around 14k to 16k for these book tours. This is highly recommended. Don't miss these tours. These are one of the most important things if you have to visit to Vietnam. And of course, then you can have something as a miscellaneous cost added to the entire cost. Let's say around 800 rupees to 1,000 rupees per day. So you can roughly assume 10 to 12k as miscellaneous expenses, which could be for different things which you have not considered. So all in all, these are the different buckets that you can divide your cost of traveling to Vietnam. So in total, if we add all of this, for one person, the cost will come to around 1 lakhs to 1.25 lakhs, depending on where you're staying, whether you got the flight at a better price or not. And for two people, it's roughly going to cost you around 1.75 lakhs to 2 lakhs. That's the economics. I hope you liked my video. If you did, do not forget to hit the like button. Also, do subscribe to my channel. I will keep on posting more videos related to travel. Specifically for Vietnam, if there's anything that you want me to talk about, please mention in the comment section below. I'll read through it and hopefully will come up with a video very soon. Thank you.